All right, there are too many platforms and aspect ratios for me to keep track of, so if you're watching this on YouTube, this is sort of the behind the scenes sort of fun thing. You get to see my script and my notebook that contains my shot list, so that's exciting. If you're watching on TikTok, maybe go on over to YouTube to see sort of the junk that's just out of frame here. No, sorry, real quick, before we jump directly into it, I do need to note that everything you see here today is a prototype and not necessarily indicative of the final product. So here we go. In Surplus of Sloths, you are trying to prevent sloths from falling into rivers and you want to catch them in nets. You know what? We're going to cut to B-roll and I'll explain this a little bit better because I'm going to read a script. Surplus of Sloths from Weird Giraffe Games is designed by Charlie McCarron with art by John Merchant. In it, players try to score different suits of cards by drafting one card at a time. Cards they draft don't score, but help them win the suits and score sloths that fall into nets. There are 5 suits of sloth cards ranging in numbers from 1 to 7, with 3 X cards in each suit. The game plays 2 to 4 players. To start the setup, you will only include 1 more suit than there are players, leaving the rest in the box. So if you're playing a 4-player game, include all 5 suits. Now the whole crux of the game depends on these 3 rows of cards. The top 2 rows are the rivers, and the bottom row is the net. The rivers are where players will draft cards from throughout the game, and that 3rd row, the net, it represents the points that each suit is worth at the end of the game. Each river is stocked with 1 more card than there are players. On each turn, the starting player chooses one of the rivers to draft from and takes 1 card. Then each player drafts as well from the same chosen river in turn order. And at the end of the round, there's going to be 1 card remaining in the river that had been drafted from, and that last card drops into the 3rd row, which is the net, and adds to the point total value of that particular suit. So if you're following along, you don't score points for any of the cards you draft, but they will aid you in your quest to claim the points caught in the net. The game ends when the deck runs out of cards, and the players then compare sets they've made. You see, as you draft cards, you want to keep in mind both which cards you want to fall into the net and how to obtain them. You claim suits at the end of the game by having the longest set in that suit. So take for example the green suit. The player that has the best set of cards in their hand at the end of the game wins the points represented in the net. Now what are sets exactly? Simply just runs in the same suit. The player with the longest running set in that suit color wins the points. And if there's a tie, whoever has the largest numbered card in their run wins. Now each suit also has 3 of those cards with X's on it. They do different things if they're in your hand or if they're caught in the net. If they're caught in the net, they add a multiplier for the amount of points that are caught in the net there. So the more X's there, the more that multiplier grows. If they're in your hand, they can be used as a wild to make longer sets. The only thing they really can't do in the hand is break ties. So if you are tied for a run of 3 cards in a suit, you can't say that the X is the highest card in your run to beat out a tie. And as point modifiers, it's pretty interesting because if you let those X's drop down into the net, then that means, say, in the last 2 rounds, if you let 2 X's drop into a suit, it suddenly becomes much more valuable than it was throughout the course of the whole game. So you need to make those decisions based on what you think the other players may have had, if you've been paying attention, keeping track of what they're going for, because you don't want to allow them to get modifiers that you have no chance of getting. I like this game because I like card games that are simple, but do things very differently. That idea of scoring individual suits at the end of the game is something that I really enjoy. My all-time favorite card game, Spoil Me Not, which really needs a North American distributor, does a similar thing in that you have to make decisions on which of those suits you are not going to be able to score. So you have this simple decision every single turn. It's pull 1 card from one of these areas. And so you're slowly building this course path to victory, hopefully. You have to pay attention to what other people are drawing. You have to pay attention to how that net evolves throughout the course of the game. And so while the actual physical task itself is very easy and very simple, you just take 1 card. Deciding which card is going to be the best for this given scenario or given situation evolves throughout the course of the game and is really interesting in that way. And so you're focusing in on the granular aspect of what am I doing this individual turn, but you also have to step back and figure out if you want to go for multiple piles that are caught in the net, or do you want to focus on simultaneously building the point value of one or 2 of those piles and making sure that you get the best run so that you are sure to win those at the end of the game. Like I said, the gameplay itself, very, very simple, and that juicy, delicious decision making is a lot of fun. I would love if this game had like maybe double the amount of cards, but I understand why that's not the case. But it also lends itself to being a nice, quick game. So you've got this nice little game that's quick to play, It offers you a number of interesting decisions. It's very easy to describe and explain, and it's adorable. I mean, like if you like sloths, that's really cool. There's a lot of different little sloths in here, so that's a plus. In terms of where it sits in Weird Giraffe Games catalog, in my mind, Weird Giraffe does a really good job of creating charming games. And if anything, they create games that are deceptively complex. All their games look very lightweight, very easy, but there's definitely a hierarchy in terms of which games I think that I could get to the table more often than not. Surplus of Sloths sits in, I think, the sweet spot zone, maybe on the lighter end of that, in that it is a game that is simultaneously charming, easy to explain, quick to play, but still offers interesting decisions. I love it. I love it when interesting decisions are wrapped up and rolled into simple mechanics and gameplay, and that's exactly what you've got with Surplus of Sloths. So that is awesome. I really enjoy it. I think Weird Giraffe Games has been knocking it out of the park lately with a lot of their offerings. This is just another win for them, and if it's something that you're interested in, currently as I'm making this, it's on BackerKit. It funded in one day, so it's for sure going to be published. Check it out. If everything that I'm saying in terms of weight, style, and all that looks and sounds interesting to you, then I do highly recommend Surplus of Sloths. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. You can find me on most forms of social media at Plumpy Thimble, primarily on TikTok and YouTube, trying to be a little more active on Instagram as well as Blue Sky.